Okay, this video is going to be on the physics of water, and this is just on the physics of physics. Okay, so I'm going to go with like high school level physics. You'll need to understand me. So when people talk about electrons, protons, atoms, that theoretical framework, right? And not exactly that theoretical framework, but we're going to be referencing those sizes and those experiments and those observations. Right, so specifically gravity, electromagnetism, light, right, substance, form, right? So all matter, as far as anybody can tell, at least at down to a certain level, is fluctuation or a pattern in the electromagnetic field. We know that atoms have a sort of a positive core, and then there's a field around the atoms that has different shapes, right? So it's a field, but it has a structure, right? The s orbitals, the p orbitals, the shape of the bonding angles and stuff like that. There's this electromagnetic field, right? Which say it's a particle in a wave, but it seems to be a wave. It's like it's a medium, and it's in a standing wave pattern. And so then the shape of that is fluidic, right? It flows. When we look at electricity and everything, we can see that under the right conditions, the electromagnetic field can flow, or it can at least support waves in itself. Some sort of wave can be transmitted through the electromagnetic field medium. And when we touch, whether or not you're touching air, steel, water, whatever it is, you're touching the electromagnetic field. That's the boundary, that's the external aspect to everything, right? The surface of everything is this electromagnetic field. The surface of all the atoms the only thing that we ever get to interact with. We don't really get to interact with the core, the positive core, because it's in this electromagnetic shell. And the shape of that electromagnetic shell, the density, the amount of charge that it has, determines its behavior, determines its properties, right? So when we're looking at water, normally the electromagnetic field of things is either so diffuse, right, that you don't get to separate it from what it is as an object, right? Like if you have a piece of steel, that electromagnetic field, you could maybe pull it apart if you're really, really strong, but for the most part, it stays as an object. And then with air, right, there's an electromagnetic field, but it's too diffuse to be causing an object. So you don't really get to play with the electromagnetic field bonding to itself and becoming an object and then separating that. Because the electromagnetic field that I'm talking about that's cool is a part of the field that bonds things together as an object. And in water, that bonding is only as strong as the surface tension, right? So it holds together as an object, but when you play with surface tension, you're playing with the electromagnetic field that is so dense it kind of locks you out of interacting with it when you have an object, right? You have an object, you can't go into that field. And if you do go into the field too hard, you end up just breaking the field. But with water lets you actually perceptually, at the human level, interact with and observe the actions of the electromagnetic field. Like, so does mercury. And in fact, all matter lets you see and interact with the electromagnetic field. But the aspect of the field that makes any material useful or interesting is when it behaves like water. When the molecules are holding themselves together and capable of doing holding a pattern. So water lets you play with the electromagnetic field. So you can see with water, like how to create whirlpools, you can create different standing waves, you can create different resonance patterns in containers, right? You can have a container, a big pool of water, and just kind of go up and down over here, and you can get the whole container to go crazy, even though you're just doing this up here, right? Normally, if you weren't hitting it at the resonant frequency, you doing this over in one side of a pool or an area, it just creates light, right? It just creates waves, sound. Like Tesla said that light was sound in the ether, right? It's what it is. So normally, if you just are creating vibration at a non-resonant frequency, you just see the waves going out like ripples in a pond, or like a radio beacon. But if you find the resonant frequency of the space that you're emitting into, then you can emit that light, and that light will start to build up. And then the whole pool will be going up and down more and more and more and more, just from, you know, you moving the kickboard up and down. Like, I have videos of it. And the same thing with just this. If you do this for a second, or like if you do this under the surface, it's just going back and forth and creating currents. But lo and behold, if you do it right, you can start to generate lift underneath the hand, and it'll suck the water down, and you'll get a whirlpool right above your hand. So you can be doing this, and it'll cause a whirlpool to form, which is like a non-physical object. A wave, you could say, is like, oh, that's energy, or that's the behavior of the water. But when a whirlpool forms, it's very much, it has all the appearances and qualities of a self-contained object. It's a cycling of ether. And that's the substance of all atoms, all molecules, all, like, hydrogen is basically that, and then all other elements are just compounded hydrogen. But hydrogen has it's a whirlpool in the ether, a standing wave cymatic pattern, and then the very center, that's the kind of the positive part, the proton, right? And then the electrons is all the negative field. But anywhere that there's center, so think of the vortex. You have a cone in the surface, and it goes all the way to the bottom. You see the very bottom of that, that's like, imagine having something that wants to pop up. You have surface right there, right? All that surface of the vortex stopped. It would want to be pulled up towards the surface. And in fact, any of these deviations that are down below the surface want to be pulled up, and you could say that's what positive charge is. There's not really positive, negative. It's just you have the electromagnetic field, and it has a surface level, and then if it gets pulled up or down, right? If the field goes up, you could call that a negative charge, and it's like a big lump of water. If it's up high, it wants to come down. And if you have a divot, if you have a whirlpool, and it's sinking down, then that's going to be one pulled up towards level. So that's that when you say positive and negative, like electrons and protons and stuff like that, it's not exactly that there's that sort of duality. It's all one thing, and then the only duality is the so you have surface level at the rest state, right? You have ether that's not manifest into anything, and then if you create a wave, the wave has a crest and a trough, right? If you press down, that's negative, everything else becomes, or if you press down, that's positive, everything else becomes negative, right? If you cause a surge to come up, that's negative, everything else becomes positive, and they seem to be attracted to each other, but not really. It's just the surface of the electromagnetic medium wanting to come to rest. Right, in certain phenomenon, right, you don't get a whirlpool in the air, you only get a whirlpool into the denser medium, the denser water. And when this thing happens in 3 dimensions, you get like a toroid effect, or, right, the phi spiral, everything. That's how things are whirlpooling. And so when that water whirlpools, the spout goes down, and since it's down, it's below where the surface wants to be, making it positive. And if you disrupt the energy going down into the water, the vortexing, then the positive and negative will come together, which is actually just the water, just the ether going to surface. That's how all matter operates, but in water, you see it operating like it's operating. And you can see what happens when there's different charges, different densities, different phases by having acidic water, basic water, fats, and fats dissolved in water, alcohol, sugar. How do all these different things interact with water? And you get not analogies of how the electromagnetic field works in general, but actual examples. With water, it's not analogical, it's exemplar. Everything that you see water doing is an example of what it's doing. It's doing that in its purest form. It's not analogical. And so the finer your precision machinery and the tinier you're able to sense, the smaller and smaller vortices and eddies and disturbances in the electromagnetic field you're able to see. It'll just get as rarefied as you can get. So you just see fractal, atoms, protons, quarks, tinier and tinier stuff, just because it's the same. The ether, the electromagnetic field, is simple. It's only one thing. So but it can do down to the smallest possible level you could figure out how to engineer it down to. So you can't find the most simple form of matter, because there's just one form of matter, and anything that you point at is it. But it's just doing different things the way that water does different things. And the way water does different things is an example of how this field does different things. And truly everything's an example of how this field does different things, but water plays this central role in that activity that it does. So water and ether are synonyms. What people perceive of as the electromagnetic field within their perception, or the ether within this perception, within this world, is actually your body water. Your body water is the space within which all of your perceptions and your thoughts are happening. It is the electromagnetic field. Your body water, what you experience subjectively as awareness, and subjectively as ether, subjectively as the electromagnetic field, is what other people see as your body water. So what you're experiencing as awareness, a third party would see that as your body water. Like, it's right there. If you wanted to know the location of your experience objectively, it is your body water. Like the ever elusive mind is body water. So if you look at that for a little bit, you can see that it's fractal. Some of these things, like, never in a million years am I going to have this make total sense, because the nature of reality is self-referential and paradoxical. But if you try and work with it, only you can solve that bridge, and I'm saying that you can solve it very easily with water. I can't solve it linguistically necessarily, other than to point to and kind of give you inspiration that it could be solved by water. I'm so thirsty.